Hey, what's up everybody? Lawler here, your inside source for all things Rocket League. And after long anticipation, power rankings are finally back. I wanted to wait a couple weeks to see if we can get a little bit more data on how teams are performing and stuff with the new rosters. And to be completely honest, it didn't help at all. But before I give you my top 10, as always, if you guys enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe, as well as turn on notifications. And all my social medias, whether it be Discord or Twitch or whatever it may be, is in the description down below. Make sure you guys go give those a like and follow as well. But with that said, let's get into the video. So the first power ranking back for the Winter Split, going to be a difficult one, and going to be doing Europe first because North America has the grid going on right now, so I'm going to wait for those to wrap up before probably putting those out tomorrow or the next day. We haven't had a regional in quite a while for Europe as they're going through open qualification processes right now in the closed qualifiers. That'll be playing out this weekend, so this will give you kind of an idea of what teams to be paying attention to. I will say Europe is closer than it ever has been. I think the top tier, like the top 6, are a lot closer than what they used to be, and the bottom 5, bottom 6 used to be a lot closer than they are now as well. And this will develop as we get another regional under our belt here this weekend, but again, Europe, I think, is very difficult. Something that I'm adding this time around as well is honorable mentions as a dedicated list. These are teams that are most definitely that can be at the number 10 or higher spot, but I think these are going to come down to more of like a gut feeling, more who I think, if paired up right now, who I think I would give the nod to based upon developmental over time, new roster, stuff like that. So with that stated, let's start off with our honorable mentions. We're going to go with Endpoint, Fadeaway, Wolves, and Redemption. If you guys don't know, obviously these teams have taken quite a bit of their roster changes. Fadeaway is adding Yukio. The Wolves are a newer team that just got signed that will be coming in. Redemption is basically Leftovers 2.0 with Mike Boy and Cash and Ocelon. And then you've got Endpoint still staying the same in a team that just hasn't really had the results to really give me them the nod. They've been kind of lackluster, but I still think they have a lot of potential. And are a team that should be very much so respected because when they do have those weekends where they pop off, they look absolutely dominant. So their overall rankings right now is 5th overall. And that's something that's I'm going to be displaying now as well, is the overall rankings. This is the results across every single regional, every single major, every single event other than the grid. So keep that in mind as well. This is just kind of the master ranking that I have displayed for now. But I think all the teams in this category, I think Fadeaway does a really good job of putting up a fight against any team, but I can't really convincingly give them a nod against some of the guys ahead. I think they'll keep the series close and there's a chance they can play upset, but the teams above them will probably get the victory. At number 10 is going to be Dignitas. I do not have a last week or a change rating for this week because we are starting fresh for the Winter Split, but Dignitas is in at number 10. I think this is an interesting one. They haven't had the greatest results, if I'm being completely honest. In regionals, they do finish top 9, tied with a bunch of other people, but they don't really look all that bad. I think they come in with a different level of anticipation and a little bit of aggression with apparently Jack, and they're still figuring out. There's a little bit of kinks to figure out with who's aggressing when, and him and Jorias still need to get on the same page. But overall, this team has a lot of potential. I'm actually really looking forward to what their offense has developed into. But the big concern is still for this entire season going to be Violent Panda. He's dealing with tendonitis still. His thumb needs to be rested for an extended period of time, but this season and the circuit style doesn't really enable him to do that. So I'm not sure on how much of an effect that's going to play long term, but I do think Dignitas, this is kind of one that they're at the very bottom. I think they could be bumped out by any of these other teams. But I do like what I'm seeing as a early start to Dignitas. At number 9 is going to be Singularity. This one, if you guys didn't see the offseason, Godsmilla found a new team with Breezy and Hibbs, and then last second Scrubkilla didn't have a team and took Godsmilla's spot again for the second time. So this is a team that I think Scrubkilla, he never really looked all that comfortable on Guild. It felt kind of awkward the entire time that he played. That doesn't seem to be the case with Singularity. The only contrast that I have to Singularity is they do play extremely well when they are on. When they are on, they look like a team that can take on just about anybody. They'll make it close. They've had upsets against Vitality. They've done some really exciting things. But when they look off, they look like absolute crap. It's a really polarizing team, but I think their highs are so high that I give them a nod here. I'm not going to bump them above some of the other teams that are a bit more consistent. But Singularity with this team, they definitely have a lot of potential. Scrub has talked a lot about them in the offseason and where he thinks Hibbs and Breezy lie. The only thing that he talks about from his previous roster is that Nolly is very talented, but this new Singularity roster is actually pretty dang good. At number 8 is going to be Team Queso. This is the former Magnifico roster. You guys would know them with it being Greasy formerly on the team. But this Team Queso squad has actually stepped up and had pretty consistent results. In this circumstance, they tie for 5th in the most recent regional that they had. Curious to see if they can recreate that. But this is a team that's been actually pretty consistent, whether it was with Greasy or otherwise. They did bring in VK Salin, an up-and-comer that has been kind of floating around the scene for a while and finally getting a shot and has had really good results. Still super consistent, still able to put up a fight. Not enough to break into the top tier of the guys that end up in the quarterfinals or the semifinals. They do it every once in a blue moon, but it's not consistent enough for me to give them a nod above some of the other guys. But still a really good team. This is a team that if you fall into lowers, you're like, ah, crap, this is going to actually be a fight rather than a free gimme to move into the next and later rounds. So Team Queso, really exciting one. And speaking of lower rounds, I will mention this. This is a new split, which means a new format. It is double elimination format. So there is going to be some teams like Oxygen that seem like they are performing better than they would in the round robin kind of Swiss style. So it is going to be interesting to see how this develops over the next few months as well. If we have some teams that really enjoy that double elimination, extra life kind of mentality rather than, hey, you play your 3 matches back to back to back and then you're gone if you don't do well. At number 7 is going to be Oxygen. Speaking of the devil, finally having some results. They actually ended up tying for 5th as well. And grid-wise, they fell out a little bit earlier than I wanted them to, but it does seem like the mental coach that they brought in has been helping significantly. I've always thought Oxygen was like a top 8 team, but they just didn't have the results to back it. And so far in recent results, they have. So Oxygen, I think, is going to be one that we're going to keep a close eye on, as always, because I think they're way too talented not to be performing well. But they've put up some pretty good fights. They've gotten pretty far in some results. I thought they could have taken the grid all the way, but again, some people stand in their way per usual. But Oxygen's still competitive, still placing top 8, top 4. So glad to see them progressing back to where we think they all belong. At number 6 is going to be Guild Esports. If you guys remember, pretty much all of last split is between Guild and Barcelona for that 5-6 spot. And it's ironic who has actually kind of overtaken Barcelona's spot. But for Guild Esports, I had some concerns about how Devo was going to fill into this roster. And I've got to say, I've actually been extremely impressed. This team has done a really good job of bringing in new talent that just seems to fit the mold perfectly. Devo has been basically anchored on that team and is there as a facilitator. He will sit and watch the play develop. And after he kind of gets into a comfort, he then starts bumping and demoing, going for a little bit more solo plays. And when he is kind of in the rotation back or that line change of we see in hockey, it's Tho and Nolly working as a duo. It's kind of like a 2 versus 1, but Devo isn't afraid to move in as that third, which I was a little bit hesitant on, but it's been really exciting. I think Guild Esports has put up some really good fights, some pretty big upsets. They tie for 7th in the most recent regional that they had. This is a team I think that can play upset quite a bit. A very talented team that I don't think you can take lightly. They have a lot of threat on all sides of the field. And if we then push into another level where you start to see Nolly have a pop-off day or Devo have a pop-off day, they can really overwhelm some teams. So I've been really enjoying what Guild's been doing, and it puts them at number 6 for me. At number 5 is going to be Galaxy Racer. This is the former Monkeys roster that I casted in the grid during the fall split and have solidified themselves as a team that needs to be respected. They put up competitive matches. They're very similar, ironically, to like version 1, where they didn't really have too much respect on their name, but they kept going up toe-to-toe against the top-tier rosters, the guys in the top 4, and either barely winning it or barely losing it. Like it's a game 5 overtime or something like that. But Galaxy Racer has continuously put themselves in good position. The frustrating part about their regional was that Arju was lagging pretty heavily. They ended up losing to Guild in a series I think they actually could have won, but Arju was like phasing through the ball and going elsewhere. But I did talk to their coach, Andy, and he does talk like Galaxy. Yes, we've been playing well, but I think Guild could have taken that series on us either way without the ping. So a lot of respect given. I just think Galaxy Racer has had better results consistently over a period of time because they've been with Arju since like week 3 of the grid of fall split. So I have a little bit more history to look back on, while Guild I've got a week and a half. So I do think Galaxy Racer and Guild going to be fighting for that 5-6 spot again. But Galaxy Racer moving up and consistently performing with Arju. His addition has been world-class. Ixo pops off whenever he feels like it, apparently, and the Matane just super consistent. At number 4, and I actually have a tough part with 4 and 3, so I'm probably going to reveal those at the same time and kind of make my discussion. At number 4, I have Giants Gaming, the new edition of Itachi, replacing Tox. And for top blokes, the same old Flame, Casio, and Archie. For Giants Gaming, I think Itachi is absolutely stellar. He slots in absolutely perfect to this team. He continues to be very moldable. He is very adaptive in his gameplay. He has been going for a lot more like flip reset and kind of mechanical play. Kind of reminds me of Alpha 54, if I'm being completely honest, on what he's doing for this team. But they don't skip a beat. This team still continues to look like another top 3, top 4 roster in Europe with even a roster change. I want to talk about Devo slotting in perfectly. Itachi does the same thing. I think Itachi can do that for literally any team at this point. So Giants Gaming, don't miss a beat, continue to be competitive, and the only reason they lose to number 3 Top Lokes is because Top Lokes has had better results. Winning a grid, getting a top 3, top 4 placement just behind Giants, it's one thing to continuously place top 3, top 4, but then to also win an event just after as well shows consistency for me for Top Lokes. Galaxy Racer ended up going through both Giants and BDS in that grid, so it was a little bit weird, but Top Lokes super consistent at the top, showing that they can win it all as well, which I think is a really big deal, even if it is just the grid. But Top Lokes, just due to consistency and how well they've been performing, I try not to have a favorite team. I don't really enjoy putting out a favorite team. I personally just enjoy really good gameplay. But Top Lokes' playstyle, when they're passing and when things are on, it is just an absolute pleasure to watch. So congrats to Grams and the rest of the guys over there and what they are accomplishing for Top Lokes. I do hope they get picked up really soon because they are way too talented not to be signed by an organization. And number 2 is going to be obvious, going to be Vitality. Even though they haven't had the best results, they do still take second in Regional 1 and in the grid. We don't need to talk about how poorly they did in comparison, but it's Vitality. I mean, without a doubt, Vitality still continues to be that team where it's like they're a gatekeeper team to get into the top 2. You have to beat them to push past. They have moments where they look absolutely stellar and can push into the number 1 spot, but they just have it all. When they're on, they look absolutely lethal, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Makes it pretty obvious here for number 1, and as everybody expects, it's going to be BDS at number 1. The best team in Europe right now. Super consistent, really talented, works the field well, never looks pressured, and find ways to win. The biggest thing I like about this team is they have been challenged a lot more recently by some of the other teams, yet they still continue to persist. It is absolutely insane to me that they have, out of 5 regional events, you're talking 3 regionals, a major, and another regional, they have won 4 of them. That is insanity. I don't know if we've ever had another team perform to that level under continuous competition. Obviously, Dignitas doing what they did for the World Championship when it was Gale Force and Dignitas and everything else is pretty unheard of. But to have a team under this level of competition competing all the time, I would love the opportunity to sit down with BDS and be like, what is it that you guys are doing that allows you to stay at the top? Because that is not a thing that is normal. Most cases, when there's a team at the top, you struggle to stay and innovate and continuously be at the very top while everybody else is trying to find different play styles and different creativity to knock you down, and they still find a way to keep that form. So I think it's really commendable. I think BDS is doing a phenomenal job. They are an absolute pleasure to watch as well. I just think the pass plays from Top Lokes are a little bit more entertaining because of how consistent that 3-man play comes in. But BDS, absolutely dominant, still a very talented team. They do win this regional again, but they've got another regional coming up this weekend, so we'll see how that all plays out. That's going to wrap it for the power rankings. These are kind of tough. I'll admit, I think EU, there's a lot of these that could be interchanged a little bit depending on the day, but if I'm going with my gut and I'm talking about, hey, if these guys play head-to-head, if I take BDS versus Vitality, I'm picking BDS. If I pick Vitality versus Blokes, probably picking Vitality, maybe Blokes. Top Lokes versus Giants, and that's kind of the way I'm looking at it, is based upon the tier. If I have a head-to-head matchup from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, the team that's above them is the one that I'm picking to win. But again, play style differences come into play, time of day, all that kind of stuff. So the whole any given Sunday mentality is definitely real in both Europe and North America. Coming up next, guys, we do have an interview with Pashi we'll be putting out soon. We've also got North America Power Rankings coming up as well. But that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, drop those in the video comments down below, as well as hit thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications. But that is going to do it for me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.